Well, hey, Commonwealth Nation. My name is Chase Chamberlin. I am the CEO and founder of Commonwealth, for those of you that don't know me. And this is Inside Track, a video series we created for all of you to get you closer to the action, bring you more deep insights on these offerings, the issuers and the teams that bring these amazing horses to the platform. Today, I'm excited to be joined by a good friend of mine and incredibly talented Bloodstock agent, Kim Valerio, to discuss the latest offering, Shine Softly 23, a filly by the number one freshman sire, Yaupon, out of the mare Shine Softly from the family of Breeders' Cup champion Soaring Softly. Before we jump in, I want to do a quick introduction on Kim Valerio and her background and what an incredible bloodstock agent she is and has been over the years. So, Kim has been in the horse business her entire life. I'll allow her to speak to that a little bit, but she really made her mark early on by selecting a horse called Scat Daddy. Scat Daddy is the sire of 2018 Triple Crown winner Justify, and really a breed shaping stallion. I can't understate what an important selection this was. It's like picking the LeBron James of basketball players or of racehorses. He had premature death, so it's really hard to say what he could have done for the breed. The year that Justify won the Triple Crown, he had three entrants in the Kentucky Derby, and he has produced European sensations like None Never, Caravaggio, Sergei Prokofiev, Sioux Nation, and many others. And now his sons are going on to produce incredibly talented sons who are now going on to produce incredibly talented foals. So, really, just an incredible horse, incredible selection that we'll talk about here in a little bit. Kim also, a thing that I love about her, Kim has also selected horses like My Happy Face, a $25,000 yearling purchase that Kim no doubt picked out of a back book at Keeneland that went on to have some great success, placed in the Grade 1 test, sold at some point partially to Rockingham Ranch, earned $583,000 on the track, and then sold for over $600,000 as a broodmare. She has countless examples of this. She also selected the mare Wonder Wheel, who was a $275,000 yearling purchase, who went on to win the Breeders' Cup, earning $1.5 million dollars and then selling to Japan for $3.2 million dollars. She also chose breeding stallion The Factor, an incredibly talented stallion and racehorse. And her recent selections are, really horses that are in the press right now. I'm sure many of you have heard of the horse Sandman, Kentucky Derby contender, made famous by his interaction with Griffin Johnson, who has set racing on fire and brought a much larger audience to the sport. He's earned $1.5 million dollars. Nitrogen, one of the best fillies in the country at the moment, a Medaglia filly that Kim helped choose the mating on, a homebred for DJ Stables, who is now a sensation not on just the turf, but on the dirt, having just won a Grade 1 at Saratoga. Webslinger, a Constitution horse, over $1.4 million in lifetime earnings. And even Hades, a talented horse that's no longer part of the stable, but earned over 391,000. So Kim, it's so nice to have you. I'm gonna bring you up here, and just excited to be able to introduce everybody to Kim and
Hi.
on the show. Thanks for joining, Kim.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Now, Kim and I have become really good friends. We've traveled the world. We've seen, gosh, at least hundreds of horses. We're probably over 1,000 now. I know Kim's seen tens and tens of thousands of horses, but together, we've been able to see thousands. So, Kim, um, y- you know, having selected all these horses, what really is it that draws you to these horses that are in these later books and helps you find kind of these diamonds in the rough?
Um, a, a big part of it is for sure physical. I like them to look athletic. I want them to be light on their feet. I personally don't like horses carrying too much weight or too much muscle. I know that's good for colts, but realistically, Scat Daddy was not a heavy yearling. He was very tall and narrow. Um, Also, pedigree plays a big thing with me. Once upon a time, freshman sires were not a big thing. Now they are. Everybody wants one, but I feel like I made my entire young career off of buying freshman sires, which would be Scat Daddy, first crop Johannesburg, a filly named Anchorage. I pinhooked her. I bought her for 60. I sold her for 540. She was first crop Tappet. Um, Tis Wonderful. My Happy Face was first crop. I also had Tom Durkin's Last Call with Condo Commando. I had two spin-away winners by Tis Wonderful, Lady Ivanka, and Condo Commando. Three total spin-away winners in a 7-year period. So that's the group one at Saratoga for 2-year-old fillies at
And
the end of
just so
the.
everybody has an idea, less than 5% of horses, like much less than 5% of horses ever win a grade one. So to win multiple in your lifetime, let alone a 7-year period, is highly improbable and a major, major accomplishment.
Well, thank you. It definitely is. My childhood, I grew up in automobile racing. My father is a fabricator, engine builder, chassis builder, still in the business at 80 years old. So as a child, he was my babysitter, and all I heard my whole younger life was chassis weight, posi traction, speed, aerodynamics. So all that I think plays into what I do. Um, I like fast looking horses. That's one thing that drew me close to this Yaupon filly was she actually looks a lot like those Tis Wonderful fillies.
Hmm.
He obviously got sold to Japan. So did Condo Commando. So did Lady Ivanka. They like those fast horses too. Um, so that has a lot to do with it, is just my upbringing and being around speed and how speed's created and how you can get more of it, really. So
Well, and speaking of that, you picked a speedy filly, for this offering. So Shine Softly 23, hip 754 at the OBS June sale. She breezed an eighth of a mile in 9.4 seconds. Can you just talk to us about what you saw on that day? And, obviously it's not, you don't always just pick horses that go 9 and 4. It's not just about how they go fast or them going fast. It's about how they go fast. So can you talk us through kind of what you saw, what set her apart from other horses that went fast?
very rarely do I like to buy a 9 and 4. Uh, a lot of that has to do with what it does to their mental capacity if they've been being pushed to do that. Um, I also like to buy value, and with her being towards, the end of the sale, I felt like at that point she could be value, but her gallop out was extremely consistent. She went 9 and 4. Now where I've been clocking my own horses, the horses myself, sorry, for over 20 years from the exact same spot, which is 1 furlong after the wire on the rail in a chair, which gives me an advantage over others. I can hear them hit the ground. I can see what their eyes, how their facial expressions are taking the pressure, and when the jocks let off the pressure, how they are taking it, whether they're exhausted, whether they're breathing properly. So when she worked, everything stayed consistent. Her gallop out, she went 20 flat, which others would have gotten it slower than that. But because of my vision where I sit and how I have to clock the poles, I can't remember what the word I'm looking for is, but um it's going to be a little quicker than everybody else. So that's probably more like a 20 and 2, but in the end it all works out the same. She went 32 and 4, 47 and 2. So she consistently stayed even and speedy across the track. I like to see him do that. Um, she hit the ground very light. You could barely hear her come by, and that's a big component for me. That means she's going to be easy on herself. The horses have enough problems as it is naturally, so the lighter that they're on their feet, the better. So I do like that. I tend to take off horses that feel like they're pounding the ground. a lot of people buy those. I just feel like they're not going to last
And
a long
and
time.
and Kim, we gotta tell everybody. So, Kim and I now it's funny. She and I know each other's vernacular, and I know Kim's, and so we can read each other's shorthand. And so, Kim, let's tell everybody what your nickname is for one that doesn't go soft on the ground.
Well, I mean ground pounder, or do I have
Ground
another
pounder.
name?
There we go.
Yeah, yeah. I don't like them to pick their feet up. I don't like them to move like this. It's just too much concussion on their front ankles and their knees. I don't like heavy shoulders. I like big shoulders, but light muscle structure across them. A lot of people would rather see big muscle structure. I like big, long withers with the muscle up on the wither, not on the shoulder. So, um, it's just a preference, but that probably has to do with coming from top feel and dragsters because that's how they're built. You know, they're light in front and heavy behind. So, yeah, she just did it so easy, and she's super fast bodied. She's has a really elegant structure to her,
Hmm.
and she's not. I'm not going to tell you she's a pussycat, but she has an attitude that I like. She'll pin her ears, she'll try to bite. I do like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like them to be sweet, but I also buy a lot of white-eyed horses. She doesn't have a white eye, but I like the fire in them.
Yeah. I would agree. It's like she's sweet enough, but she'll also tell you when you've spent enough time in her space.
Yes,
You know,
exactly, for
it,
sure.
we have a filly in the stable that started off really nice. She's too sweet. She almost would rather be a puppy dog. She's an older horse that's getting near retirement, and she has a doe eye that's just too kind. Um,
Yeah.
and I noticed that right away at the sale. I think I had texted you because I went to see her. You were busy with something else, and so I went to see her the next day. I think you'd already left. I was seeing if she'd shipped out, and I was
All
petting
right.
on her, and she was really happy to be pet. And then she said, "Okay, thanks. That's enough. You can get out of my face now." And so I obliged, and I thought, "Man, I love that. She's ready for business." You mentioned something, Kim, that I want to call out for folks because we did a little data analysis. There was one other Yaupon in all the sales this year. Yaupon, number one freshman sire, we'll talk about in just a minute here. But Kaleem Shah, I think, spent 1.3 or 1.4 million. Kaleem Shah is a prolific owner, owned a lot of great horses with Baffert and many others.
Mhm.
Uh, 1.3 or 1.4 million. It's the only other horse that matched her gallop out for the quarter. And like you said, most of them that go 9-4 really can, kind of hit a wall. And there's
Yeah.
no 1/8 races that are written on the card. And she galloped out, what was it? It was 20, and then I think she went like 36 or 35 and
Oh, I
47.
would have looked it up.
Yeah,
I would have that. I don't have it in front of me, but
yeah, I don't either, but we have it in the app. It's in the offering information, but uh,
okay.
pretty impressive for a filly to match a $1 million colt in the gallop out. She, like you said, she's a racy, fast filly, the fastest 2-year-old we've ever offered on Commonwealth.
Wow. That's fantastic. I mean, she's that's an amazing stat, really, that Kaleem would have bought the other one for all that money. Um, I would say with this one, with the dam having 7 registered foals, that has a little bit to do with the price point,
Mhm.
as well as her being a medium-sized horse. She is May 10th, so I figured there's some growth there. Um, and I feel like that's how we got the price point that way. You know, uh, Also at that time, Yaupon, even though he was being well received, there weren't that many that were going as fast as they thought they would go. I mean,
Mhm.
Yaupon himself was sold in June.
Yeah.
So he had been bounced around, not selling, needing to find a home. So they took him to June, and the rest was history. Obviously he's the fastest dirt son of Uncle Mo. He ran several triple digit buyers. So, and he's a substantial looking animal. She
Mhm.
does have a lot of Yaupon in her. Um, And, the one thing that I've heard about the Yaupons is they're a tick nervous. So I feel like that's why we've opted to take the extra time with her and let her just chill out and eat green grass and, you know, uh, get ready for a big career ahead of her. Because once you get started with them, you don't want to stop too much.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, I love how she looks being at Diamond Day. You know, she's really blossomed there. She's put on a lot of weight. You and I just finished talking about how much hip we see on her now. She always had a nice hip, but she was so racy at OBS, and now she
Yeah.
looks a little bit more like a mare. And you mentioned we'll talk about the trainer here in a minute. Kim mentioned, Yaupon. We've said this a number of times in some of our communications, but I just reran his numbers, and these things are always updating. Like she said, Yaupon pretty fun. Yaupon was also purchased at the OBS June sale. By the way, he had some vetting issues, and you can go look and see. I mean, sprinters, they go hard on themselves, and Saratoga is not an easy track to run on, and he was very successful there. But here is where Yaupon ranks right now. He's the first crop sire, and he's number one first crop sire in every column that matters by a long shot. So he's at $902,000 in progeny earnings. The next best is Nick's Go with 523,000. So he's
Right.
73% higher than the next horse. He's
And that
got
includes two stakes winners for Nick's Go.
Yeah, exactly. He has 13 winners from 37 starters, which is the most winners and the most starters. The next best, again, Knicks Go. And so Yaupon has 18% more. He has two black type winners, tied for the most with Bo Liam and Leinster. He has the highest average earnings per runner at 24K. That's the highest among sires with over 20 starters. And then just incredible depth of firepower. He's got 127 named foals. And the best part is some of his best performers are fillies. And so,
Right.
super excited to have that kind of sire power. Kim, as a filly, talk to us about, so much about the brood mares and kind of residual value. What kind of power do you think it is having, Uncle Mo's dead? So what is there any kind of benefit to, having this Uncle Mo line as a future broodmare prospect?
Yeah, I mean, Indian Charlie obviously is where we're backing up there. For sure. Uncle Mo, he's threw such scope on horses. They also could turf, they could dirt. I would have to say that um part of me thinks that this filly is probably a turf horse, honestly. She looks like a dirt horse, but with this background, I'm gonna say with Uncle Mo throwing serious turf horses that uh there's a chance that we have either or there, which would be wonderful. There's nothing better than having fillies that can run on all footings. I'm big on the poly track also, especially with them putting more in at Belmont and Turfway Park, giving away so much money. Um, but Uncle Mo for sure. I feel like the Indian Charlie line, we need that to stay around. We're getting down to too many of the same pedigrees.
Yeah.
So, with this filly being out of an Aldebaran mare, he was a champion sprinter also. He was he won the Eclipse Award for champion sprinter. He ran both on the dirt and the turf. He ended
Hmm.
up going to Japan, but the first dam for her, Shine Softly, has thrown all fast horses. So with Uncle Mo throwing so much speed and Aldebaran on top of Soaring Softly, where we can get some distance, it would be nice if we could get a filly that can do both. That would
Yeah.
be wonderful.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. So as Kim was mentioning, so obviously Yaupon, this filly's sire, is by Uncle Mo. And Uncle Mo as a dam sire, just to give you guys some ideas, a dam sire, for those of you who don't know, that is the sire of the mother of a racehorse. Okay. So some horses who
The
are
grandpa.
yes, some horses who are out of daughters of Uncle Mo. Torpedo Anna, Journalism, nitrogen, the grade one winner I just mentioned to you, Muth, Wilson Tesoro, a very, very nice, over $4 million winning Japanese horse. Instant coffee. There are so many really nice horses out of Uncle Mo daughters. And then, of course, Indian Charlie, for those of you that aren't, Indian Charlie is Uncle Mo's sire. That is the dam sire of a horse maybe some of you have heard of called Flightline. So
Yeah.
there's, and then, of course, countless others. And we don't need to go too deep into it, but one of the things that's really nice is to have one of these stallions that carries that Uncle Mo line, especially in a filly,
Yeah.
um, because people love fast fillies from productive families. And it's, we're talking about Shine Softly, the mother. Let's jump into her. Kim mentioned she's by Aldebaran. Couple stats on the Shine Softly kind of, dam line. So she's a stakes producing mare. So this filly has a half sibling, the Grass is Blue, who captured the Busanda Stakes and piled up over $245,000 in earnings. This mare's uh, all of her
Which
foal.
the Busanda is not an easy race, actually.
Yeah, no, exactly. And
Yeah.
I think one thing that can happen, I don't know how you feel about this, Kim, but I think people can take for granted just how hard it is to win stakes races. So it's easy to kind of poo-poo something if it's not a grade one. It's hard to win
Right.
any race, let alone a stakes race.
Totally. You know,
Um,
we have to remember too, those races come up on days that maybe they're just got out of bed on the wrong side. And
yeah,
they're not 100%. So we don't get to move the races around according to how they feel. So,
yeah.
the positive thing about the dam side, Shine Softly, is her fastest horses weren't even stakes horses. So, I mean, the Peaceful Waters in there and Rocket and Roll, those were both very, every one of her offspring were fast.
Yeah.
So we're going to count on the fact that that's going to happen.
And seven out
And
of
there's
seven, Kim, she had seven, like you said, seven runners. All
Yep,
seven were winners. 100%
totally.
strike rate.
And then you look here, she's been bred to Broken Vow, Dialed In, Bolt d'Oro, Broken Vow again, Shackleford, Bernardini, Lonhro. I mean, they bred her to everything.
Yeah.
Um, and now Yaupon. So, um, maybe we're gonna get lucky and this is gonna be her best one.
Yeah.
So, it's such a good family deep down in there. It's one of Darby Dan's best families.
Mhm.
Um, it's just, with Soaring Softly was unbelievable filly to watch. Obviously, she won the Breeders' Cup, filly and mare turf. That is not an easy race. Um, and they bred her kind of all over the place. So obviously, Aldebaran stood at Darby Dan. So they're good at breeding to their own stallions. Obviously, the other one would be Shackleford and Dialed In are also there. So, um, that's part of why you see that in pedigrees is people supporting their stallions at their farms.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. When I think it's like you said, I think, to kind of recap for everybody before we kind of jump into some of the questions that folks have submitted for Kim and for the conversation, you know, number one first crop sire who's really delivering fast runners that from a sire line, Yaupon was obviously a dirt sprinter, but by Uncle Mo and who throws dirt horses and turf horses. So great versatility on the top. One of the worst things from our perspective is if you only have a dirt horse and there's really nothing in the pedigree that says they could go turf. If they don't turn out or they don't handle the dirt well or they need some relief, it's always been kind of, my opinion that you have a unidimensional horse. It's one of the reasons I love having constitutions so much. If a constitution doesn't make, if it looks like a dirt horse and it doesn't quite make it on the dirt, switch to the turf, you could have a top turf horse. Look at
Webslinger,
Webslinger. Look at Neat. Look at Chasing Liberty. Chasing Liberty looks like a dirt
yeah.
horse. He didn't really like the dirt as much, and Randy wanted to take it easy on him, have a long career. And, he's won about $1 million and was a homebred. So,
And
uh,
that's the same with Webslinger.
Yeah.
He didn't like the dirt. They gelded him, put him on the turf, and he flies. He's close to 2 million in earnings. Maybe, yeah,
Yeah,
almost
yeah,
over.
he's almost there. So you've got this versatile topside pedigree that throws a lot of speed and is having some real success on the racetrack. And then you put that over top of an incredibly versatile family that has won on the dirt and the turf on the turf at the highest levels with 100% strike rate, and there's some really exciting stuff there. So. As you,
Yes.
you heard from Kim, a lot of reasons to love this filly at the sale. Great value, seemingly at 110,000. So let's jump in, Kim. We can get right to some questions that folks submitted. And you know, what we already kind of talked about the attitude. Some folks wanted to know about her attitude. Um, Here's a couple interesting questions. Let's start with the most important one. Who is going to train this filly?
Well, I think we've made a unanimous decision to go with Whit Beckman. Um, I've known Whit for a long time, so I feel like relationships are important. You've gotten to spend time around him, so he's easy to talk to. He's great with fillies, and a super person. He worked for Pletcher for 5 years, Chad Brown for 6. So he has an extremely solid background with both dirt and turf horses. He's off to a good start, having entries already in the Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Oaks last year, or I'm sorry, this year, running second in the Oaks. We settled on Whit, our good friend Whit Beckman.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And just something to kind of call out for folks. Now, Kim, while I check out Whit's stats just to share with folks, Whit's a young trainer. He's actually got a wait list now. The best trainers don't really have an open door policy. You can't just toss a horse in there. Witt has trained a bunch of horses. He hasn't won a lot of stakes, but he has been, his best horses have been fillies and mares.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing is that, of his top, kind of, let me just count really quick. Of his top like 14 horses, like 11 of them are fillies and mares that have been, graded placed, multiple graded placed. And Kim,
Bought at very modest prices.
yeah, Kim, you bought a filly for Wit Music Street for
Yeah,
25,000.
yeah, yeah. I was one of his first customers, clients.
Yeah.
Um, and it takes trainers way longer than it's taken Wit to get going and getting into graded stakes. The ones that can do it quickly are generally being fed hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of horses. I mean, you can look it up. It's how it goes. Um, but Music Street, I bought her out of a late book. She had a couple little vetting issues. I kicked her out, gave her time to grow up, another Mayfoal. Um, and she ran some thriller races for us, and then I sold her at the sale. And then the person that I sold her to put her in full and resold her and doubled their money. But that was one when Wit had some growing pains, and we she didn't like the receiving barn. At that time, he was at the training center for Churchill.
Hmm.
And I'm like, can we just get her into a barn where he called Chad. We put her in Chad's barn. She ran a blinder at Churchill after that in a graded stake. So, now that he's done that with horses like her, they've now given him stalls at Churchill, so we don't have to worry about shipping in. And also, he goes to Saratoga. He goes to the fairgrounds in Oaklawn, which is great.
Yeah.
So
Where we've got real purse money. And like you said, so just to recap for you folks, $25,000 filly, grade three placed, earned $295,000 on the track, ends up selling for $500,000 in full to Taiba. And you guys got to remember, I mean, most of these horses, I'll just tell you right now, of Witt's top 14 horses, the average purchase price is $79,000.
Exactly. There
You
you go.
compare that to a Brad Cox, a Baffert, who are getting, you know,
A
sometimes
Cherie to mow.
three, who are getting $500,000 plus horses, and this guy is really outrunning himself and his stable. Wit is incredibly hands-on. I think he's sensitive, which is great for fillies. He knows how to place them. He is, I would say, he's an incredible dual surface trainer. So if
Yep,
this filly wants to go dirt or turf, there's no concern. He's going to put her in the right spot. And guys, it's pretty amazing what he did with Simply Joking, I think she was a $75,000 yearling, Pennsylvania bred, ends up becoming a multi-million dollar filly. And, Witt's done that multiple times. And you get one of these nice fillies, even with a graded stakes placing, get some black type, and their residual value there can be just incredible. And it doesn't need to be crazy high on a horse that was $110,000.
totally. I think the thing he asks the most, I'll be patient. And if they're going through hiccups as they move forward in their training, we just let them go at their own pace, which, that's extremely important that we all remember that. It's like having a kid going through growing pains. You're not gonna, push him to go forward. You're gonna let him take a minute, breathe, and then move forward. So that's the one thing I've learned with him that's important to do is just let him let him choose to let the horses go at their own pace. You know, that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Um, so what types of races will she run in, sprint or route? And the one thing I'll just say, Kim, I want to get your opinion. I hate answering these questions like right off the bat because she galloped out great.
Yeah.
And she's built with plenty of scope. She doesn't just look like a sprinter. I think my favorite thing personally about the filly that I think is interesting, you know, when we first started, I remember we had a really slow horse, Biko. And I remember watching him run first time out, and it was like, I mean, he got crushed at Presque Isle. And it was like, oh, he just needs to go farther. And I was, it was my first racehorse and I was kind of new to the game. I was very rose-colored glasses. And then I realized, well, it was a maiden and they were babies. And so all those horses that were faster than him going short, they were going to go longer and still be faster than him.
Right.
And so it's like they have to be fast first out generally because the maiden races are, generally they're shorter races. There's obviously some maidens that are a little bit longer. And then the goal is to really just stretch that speed over a route of ground. And the good ones are all fast. It's just if they go fast short or fast long.
Right. And now, as the year goes on, they start stretching them out. So now we're getting 2-year-olds that are going a mile plus.
Mhm.
Um, typically, if they're ready to run prior to August, you're not going to get a race longer than 6 furlongs for the most part, for maidens. So, um, in the end of the day, they say slow horses, you stretch them out because they're going to pass tired horses that have ground each other down. Um, we've all had slow horses. Some of them can step up to the plate and just grind them down. But unfortunately, in this country, they don't give us a lot of options to run those kinds of horses, which I find is not good. But unless I have a job in the racing office, I don't really have any say. But um yeah, I think she'll want a mile plus with, both Yaupon. I'm going to look at it more like Uncle Mo.
Mhm.
Um, Yaupon being out of a vindication mare, another sprinter, basically. But with the third dam or the second dam there soaring softly, obviously she could get 2 miles if we wanted her to. So I'm hoping that can shine through. No pun
Mhm.
intended there, but um uh, I'm hoping she's a mile plus. My gut feeling is she looks like a really fast turf miler,
Yeah.
which to me is one of the most fun races you'll ever watch. They're just thrilling from start to finish,
Mhm.
and she has that kind of physique, but also that kind of physique can run on the dirt. So,
Yeah. I agree with you. She looks a lot like a miler to me. She's got
Yeah,
the speed, and a sprinter, mile's a tough distance to run because you have to
way
be,
tough.
yeah, I think people don't realize, but you have to be fast enough to be a pseudo sprinter, but you've got to
Yes.
carry it for a mile. And that extra furlong or two really makes you you start to go anaerobic and the lactic acid builds up. And so they got to be tough.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Because they're
I,
cranking out the fractions.
I also wouldn't be surprised personally if this is a filly that, let's say she starts on the turf to get fitness and then you try her on the dirt. Like that happens oftentimes with a fast horse you're wanting to bring along because they don't have to be as fit to start.
Plus, the other thing is nowadays we're forced to, with all the regulations, sometimes when they're, not sometimes, a lot of times nowadays, when they're ready to run, you find the race, whether it's turf or dirt, and you run them because they're ready to run. And you might not get a race, and they might be not ready then.
Totally.
So you'll notice a lot of people now will put dirt horses into turf races because they're actually ready to run.
Yeah.
And it's no sense working them and working them and working them. So,
Yeah, you can't simulate the race at home. You've got to go run.
yeah,
There's no
for
doubt
sure.
about it. So, okay, the next question. Um, Horses that work in 9 and 4 can be fragile. Do you feel that this is a possible concern? What steps might the training team take to manage her physically and mentally to reduce injury risk?
Well, we're doing that now, so that's positive. 9 and 4 is they get just so buzzed up. I mean, think about it if you did that. If you went out and you went in a race car and you went 320 miles per hour in a quarter of a mile, you're definitely getting out of the car and being buzzed up. So it's the same idea. We've went above and beyond giving her the time. Also, a lot of times in general, not even necessarily 9 and 4, they're going to come out of these sales and they're going to deflate a little bit before they come back mature, especially with a May full. So we've taken the time to do that with choosing wit. He will pay close attention to that and basically say, hey, I'm going to jog her for 2 more weeks the wrong way, which means counterclockwise.
Yeah.
Um, or clockwise, sorry. Um, just to get her to settle down. But I feel like we've given her enough time now to let her settle. She's back under tack, which is great.
Yep.
Uh, just going out in the fields, jogging, which will be a big help. I feel like you and I are both on the same page there about making sure the horses have enough time for their mental state to just relax and want to do their job, not feel like they're being forced to do it. So,
Yeah,
um,
and in our experience, when we've offered horses in the past, you know, the horses that have had the most success, I discussed this with someone recently that they felt differently than me, but the data feels very clear from our experience, and that's that the horses that have been purchased from 2-year-old sales that have been given a moment to go back to the farm, decompress a bit, not always out of full training, they're still doing things,
yeah,
but
yeah.
just they don't go straight to the racetrack. They've all been our better horses. We've had two very talented fillies in particular that went straight to the racetrack from the sale, and both were rank and did not. And for those of you that don't know, rank means, unwilling to rate. They have to go out like a rocket.
Hard to handle.
Yeah, hard to handle. They won't slow down. And the problem with that is you have a very unidimensional racehorse. It's like somebody that just goes out with a lead foot, no strategy, kind of running blindly. And they were both fun mares, but they would have been so much better if they could have, rated and just been able to respond to the rider and respond to the race. Instead, they jump from the gate brilliantly and just take off. And, it's just very hard to win races in that way.
being one dimensional.
Yeah.
The other thing too is you have to remember when we take them straight to the track, there's so much traffic. These horses are coming out of a situation where they've been on a farm, then they go to the sale, they go in sets. So it's not like when you show up at Churchill Downs and it's oversaturated with horses
Yeah.
uh,
Hundreds of horses.
in a small, narrow area where they're going every direction. And that's why I feel like they need time for their brain to settle down, their body to settle down. You know, we don't know we don't know whether or not they have hairline fractures. You can't see those on radiographs. So I believe in just even giving them 30 days, it quiets all that down for one. For two, other things show up that
Mhm.
might not have showed up at the sale. So, all that their feet are being done at an early age to be correcting their conformation. Sometimes when that changes, their mental state changes because they feel it. So I'm a big believer. Like you said, I'm not telling you that you have to take them totally out of work, but I'm a big believer in before you throw them into the wolf pen, you should at least let them have a strategy of being relaxed and handling it all. So, that's just being handled, growing, maturing, all that good stuff.
Yeah, totally. And like you said, now, and just to make it clear for everyone, nothing, by the way, nothing popped up on this filly that was unexpected. Kim is more saying it's a preventative measure so that
Yeah.
you can make sure that things don't pop up. And it's much better to find things at home in the controlled environment than to find them in an accident or because they come up with it because your horse is sore. It's
And the
far
footing is
better.
deep at the tracks.
Yeah,
The tracks are being used by so many horses. They're not taking our 2-year-old right from getting it in and choosing to put it on the pristine footing over their graded stakes horses.
yeah,
So we have to remember a lot of the footing gets chewed up. So that's a lot more uneven stress on their bones. So, you know, it's just a preventative measure, like you said.
yeah, yeah. Well, this is answered most all of the questions that were submitted, which is really fun.
Okay, nice.
It's what trainer is she going to? What type of racing does it seem that she's suited for? Which, really seems clear. She looks like a multi-dimensional filly. Her pedigree screams multi-dimensional, kind of miler. Whit Beckman will be the trainer.
Yep.
And let's talk. Let's do this. We've got two more questions, Kim. We'll bust through these real quick. What is more predictable, pedigree and bloodlines, or conformation of the horse? So, and I think maybe a better way to put it, what do you believe is a more predictable measure of success?
I'm a pedigree snob, so I'm gonna always go on pedigree. I can tell you that the predictive the what you can predict in confirmation is when they're not correct in front and they hit their front legs together. That or their hock sits funny to their stifle, and they're going to get stifle problems. So
Mhm.
joints is what I'm talking about there. But I find that the pedigree is so much more predictable to me. When I can read where I think they're going to go, like we're doing with this filly, we have more success. So, um, I will take confirmation flaws over no pedigree. When you really look at it, when, a lot of people pay all this money for no pedigree with perfect confirmation, but if they don't win a race, you don't have anything. You have a riding horse. To me, I like to buy fillies. I like to be able to read the pedigree. Soaring Softly was one of my favorite racehorses. She was absolutely go back and watch some of her replays. She was a dynamite horse. Um, Chris S., her sire, her father was one of my favorite horses. Big black horse. Um, I'm picking pedigree.
Yeah. And you know what's fun? This is a random factoid. Now, she was beaten, but it's really exciting to know. So Shine Softly, this filly's dam,
Hmm.
raced against a horse named Bubbler.
Oh, right. Yep.
He was second to Bubbler. For those of you that don't know who Bubbler is, I wouldn't expect most of you to do that if you're not a pedigree nerd like Kim and I.
Yep.
Bubbler is the dam of a, somewhat known stallion called Arrogate, one of the highest earning racehorses of all time. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
That Bubbler won by a large margin. She was a fantastic horse.
Yes.
But it was fun to see. It's fun to see these pedigrees kind of collide. So, okay,
Yeah, for
last
sure.
question. This is a fun one. I did not write this question, and I'll be curious to see what she says. And we'll see if Kim and I are friends after this. Uh,
Okay.
no, how does working with Chase and Commonwealth differ from others you have worked with in the past?
Uh, for the most part, we're friends. And the other thing too is we're both actual hands-on horsemen. A lot of the people that I've worked for, I'm talking about my actual clients, not their trainers. They're not hands-on horsemen. So it was more, here's your budget. What did you buy? With us, we go to the sale, we spend a lot of time together, we look at a lot of horses together. We both could grab the shank at any time and handle the horse, which I can't say that any of my other clientele I've been able to say that. So as far as buying horses for people, that's to me is rewarding, and it's also more fun. I don't have to take it so serious because I don't have to explain a lot to you. I can tell you one thing and you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, and also we can decide together whether we're going to vote it on or off the island. Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, it certainly has made it so much fun to be able to, go to all these sales and be so close to our issuer partners. You are one of our issuer partners and so many of the other issuer partners that you represent that then choose to offer horses on Commonwealth. It's really special for us to be able to be a part of those things so early on. And we thank you so much for all the time and the energy. I think one thing that as we kind of wrap up here that most of you don't realize is Kim spends, first of all, these sales are exhausting in and of themselves. Keeneland, she's getting ready for her major marathon coming up here. I mean, Keeneland is multiple weeks, over 4,000 horses cataloged. There will be plenty of horses that Kim doesn't look at because of her shortlisting process, but a countless number of horses she will look at because she wants to dig in and, leave no stone unturned. But what you don't realize is it doesn't begin at Keeneland. This or at OBS. It begins months and even years before. And one of the things that you didn't even mention, Kim, but this is a common occurrence. Kim often will have, if we look at a 2-year-old, she often will have inspected this horse, sometimes as a weanling, certainly almost always as a
Most of
yearling,
the time. Yeah,
and
if
she'll
it's
have
been offered.
notes, and so what's great about that is in conjunction with a veterinary team, number one, you can know how something has grown. Has something been corrected? Did she know about an injury before that happened that isn't being disclosed? And so it's like having a Carfax, but it's a Kimfax. And for each of these horses, and Kim, you saw this filly, was it as a weanling and a yearling?
Yeah. You know, most of them I like to pinhook weanlings to yearlings.
Hmm.
We also my other clients buy weanlings. Sometimes they're easier to buy, especially with now look at the prices of yearlings.
No doubt.
But I choose to look at the majority of the weanlings offered. Um, Forever, I will look at nearly every horse in the sale to book for. I'm going to probably scale it back some this year and go strictly on pedigree, a little more so. Honestly, the reason why I would have done that before is because I want to give new sires chances, and the catalogs are put together by stud fee. So the most expensive stallions go up first in book one, and then they come down according to stud fee. So I don't, I'm gonna miss a good athlete like my Happy Face. She was sold the last day. Tis Wonderful is one of my favorite. I love Tis Now.
Mhm.
Um, and I stayed at the last day. So even if it's just getting to the back ring for the last 100, we still do that. But for the most part, I have all my notes from weanling to yearling, like Webslinger. When we bought him, that was his fourth sale. He made my short list in every sale. And I was going to buy him for myself because I'm like, I love this horse. He just keeps coming back and performing even better and looking better. So when I told John Green, I like this horse, I'm probably going to buy him, they liked him too, but I had already seen him in four sales. So,
Yeah.
uh, I like to look at horses. By the time, you look at how many, I'm sure that I look at least, I'm going to start next week looking at the farms
Yep.
for, all the way to they're going to show me their best book four horses, but all the book one, book two, book three, best book four. I've asked for the best book fives. So I'm already going to look at nearly the whole sale practically. I'm scheduling all that in now. So I'll start on Tuesday of next week.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, excited to see what comes from Keeneland. Thank you so much. This is we're really honored to be able to offer this beautiful fast filly. She is, I would say, probably a month away from Whit Beckman and
Makes
being
sense.
ready
Yep.
to start to hit the track. And excited to welcome you all to join the journey. You can check her offering out right now on the app.
Got it.
Shares are available, and look forward to welcome you guys. Maybe everyone can meet Kim at one of the races soon. So thanks, Kim.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. I really appreciate being part of Commonwealth. I can't thank you enough, everybody, for taking part of this great sport. And, it's a thinking man's game, really. A lot goes into it. And just getting to know the families like we do. It's an amazing thing. And I'm super happy that we have this platform to invite more people in and take part in beautiful horses like this. I like to do it with Commonwealth because I want to keep promoting the sport and taking part. It's like we have our own team, but it costs a fraction of what it would cost to buy a team. So I'm super excited to be part of Commonwealth. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, go look at your yearlings. Kim's got a ton of work to do.
It never ends. It never ends. They're
All right.
animals.
We'll see you at Keeneland.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you,
Okay.
Chase. Have a great
Thanks.
day. Okay, bye.